Good morning, children. Welcome to the online class. Today, in our next part of the video, the second part, we are going to do the lesson Tides and Ocean Current. Lesson number 10. Shall we look in our books, children? Page number 89, Ocean Currents. The next part. Currents of the Atlantic Ocean, North and South Equatorial Currents. To the north and south of equator, there are two westward moving currents, that is the north and south equatorial currents. These currents derive their energy mainly from the trade winds that blows from the northeast and southeast in the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, respectively towards the equator. Because of the deflation created by the rotation of the earth, Coriolis forces these current move to the west. See, children, in diagram 10.5, please draw these, the Coriolis force, north and south equatorial currents. Between the westward flowing currents, there is a weaker currents flowing in opposite direction known as the equatorial counter current. The north and south equatorial current pile up water against the west coast of South America, and because the trade winds are weak along the equator, some of the piled up water flows back downhill eastward, creating the counter current. Gulf Stream current, warm. The Gulf Stream is the largest of the western boundary current of the North Atlantic Ocean. This is a warm current, water current, which originated in the Gulf of Mexico around 20° north and moves in the northeasterly direction along the eastern coasts of North America. Water within the current is usually warm and blue, often depletes of nutrients and incapable of supporting much life. Under the impact of westerlies, this warm water current reaches the western coast of Europe up to 70% north. The convergence of this warm current with Labrador cold current near Newfoundland result in heavy fog. North Atlantic drift is a warm current. Its warm water are responsible for moderating the climate of Western Europe. So the winters are less cold than it would otherwise be expected at the latitudes 70° north. Without this warm current, UK and other places in Europe would be as cold as Canada at the same altitude. Labrador currents or cold currents. The Labrador, an important cold water current of North Atlantic Ocean, has its origin in the Arctic Ocean, which flows from north to south between the Greenland and the Baffin Island, Davis Strait. Passing southward, it merges with the Gulf Stream near Newfoundland. The average speed of the current is about 28 kilometers per day. It brings down huge icebergs from the Arctic Ocean to the eastern coast of Canada, which are hazardous to navigations. The convergence of this cold water current with the Gulf Stream near Newfoundland result in dense fog. The merger of these currents is however considered as most conducive for the fast growth of plankton, which is a feed for fish. It is because of these favorable conditions that the Grand Bank near Newfoundland has become the ideal fishing ground of the world. Other currents of the Atlantic Oceans are Canary currents, cold, Brazil current, warm, Falkland current, cold, Bengaluru current, cold, South Atlantic drift, cold. Currents of the Pacific Ocean. The broad circulatory system clockwise is the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere are present in the Pacific Ocean also. Some of the major ocean currents of the Pacific Oceans have been briefly described as under. Kuroshio current, warm. Kuroshio is the most important warm current of the North Pacific Ocean. It develops partly due to the Coriolis force and partly due to the obstruction of the Philippines in the flow of the North Equatorial Current. The average surface temperature of this current remains around 18 degrees Celsius. It moves at a speed of about 30 per day, 30 kilometers per day. It keeps the eastern coast of Japan warm even in the coolest month, January, when snowing infrequent in Honshu or Hokkaido, Hokkaido, an offshoot of Kuroshu current, also known as Shushima current, Shushumani current, enters into the Sea of Japan along the west coast of the island. The relatively warm water of Shushima current keeps the western coast of Japan warm. Kurali or Orishai current, cold. The Kurala current originates from the Bering Strait and moving southwards along the coast of Kama, Kamachataka in it touches the island of Kurali where it is called the Kurali current. It carries cold water and icebergs from the Arctic Ocean to the coast of Kurali, Russia and Hokkaido in Japan. The water of the Orisha current form probably the richest fishery in the world owing to the extremely high nutrients contents of the cold water and very high tide up to 10 meters in some area. The currents also has an important impact on the climate of Russia far east, mainly in Kamachat and Kukukota. Kukukota. Effects of the ocean currents. Ocean currents loosely influence the distribution, temperature, pressure, wind, precipitation, which directly or indirectly influence the economy and society of the people, especially those living in the maritime and coastal region. Some of the important effect of the ocean currents are as below. The ocean currents mitigates the air temperature and helps in the regulation of the air route. At lower latitude, on the eastern boundaries of ocean, the situation is often reversed. The eastern part of the ocean is lower latitude, recorded relatively low temperatures, making the weather and climate cold and foggy. The mixing of cold and warm currents provides ideal temperature condition for the fish, for the life of fish. The chief food of fish, plankton, is found in abundance in cold water. For example, off Newfoundland, where Gulf Stream and Labrador warm and cold currents meet, upwelling water brings in nutrients, salts to the surface of the sea. When the cold and warm currents meet, very dense fog conditions are created, which are very dangerous to navigation. In 1912, Titanic, the largest ship of its time, carrying more than 2,000 passengers off Newfoundland, where Labrador currents met, Gulf Stream struck a huge iceberg and took less than 3 hours to sink. More than 1,500 people were drowned. Warm and cold current affects the rainfall as wind passing over the warm current pick up the moisture and give extra rain to British Columbia, British Isles, Japan and Queensland, east margins of Australia and Africa after heavy rainfall due to the same reason. Wind passing over cold currents do not rain at all. Example, Kalahari and Acton Desert are much drier because of cold currents. The cold Labrador currents bring nearly 9 months of winter and bad weather condition prevailing over the rest of the year in Labrador and East Newfoundland. So children, till here the currents we have studied. You please go through the lesson and read and try to understand. Please go through the lesson. Thank you children for your cooperation. We'll meet in the next video.